Today we're going to be doing a review of this brilliant book here of Seve Ballesteros. Now this was published only a year ago, 7th of May 2021, because that marks 10 years since Seve sadly passed away. So it's called Seve His Life Through the Lens, and it's written by a very famous golf photographer called David Cannon. And he took this iconic photograph of Seve on the front. And this is Seve holding a winning putt at St Andrews with the famous celebration, and that was actually his company logo. So let's have a look inside. So David Cannon has had help from the R&A, or the Royal and Ancient Golf Club of St Andrews, the European Tour, and the Ryder Cup. So Seve His Life Through the Lens by David Cannon, and essays by Robert Greene. So here in the front of the book, we have a thank you from his son, his second son, and his daughter. So his eldest is called Seve Ballesteros. His second youngest is called Miguel Ballesteros, and his youngest is called Carmencia, or otherwise known as Carmen. And there's just a little sort of thank you to David Cannon and to Seve. And it's actually signed by Seve Ballesteros, and it's very nice. And the author David Cannon said that is one of the nicest things that has actually been written in the book. And now we have The Ford by Martin Slumbers, the CEO of the Royal and Ancient Golf Club. Now this is basically saying what Seve was about, saying when Martin Slumbers first saw Seve at Manning's Heath Golf Club in Sussex. And next to that, there is a fabulous photograph of Seve just after impact on starting his follow-through here at St Andrews in the 18th hole, third round of the 1984 Open, playing with Lee Trevino. And at the end of that, I think he was something like 7 under par. And as it happens, I've got a poster of St Andrews up here. And you might recognise the clubhouse there, and same in the photograph in the book. And so the 18th hole, that's an iconic hole in golf. And then you've got another Ford by Keith Pelly, the CEO of the European Tour, or now known as the DP World Tour. And then next to it, you've got an iconic photograph of Seve holding the Ryder Cup trophy in 1997 at Valderrama in Spain, his home country. And when he captained the team to victory against Tom Kite. And so then after that we go on through the book, and there's the contents, and so there's an introduction by David Cannon, and this is just lovely, this introduction, because David Cannon actually played with Seve before he became famous, and from the moment David Cannon says here, from the moment his opening drive soared 30 yards past the footpath that was 300 yards from the tee, I was in awe of his game. And that just basically sums Seve up there, just smashing it down the centre of the fairway, 30, 40 yards past the average distance. And then you've got some little quotes by famous golfers. So you've got Lee Trevino here, you've got Tiger Woods, you'll probably have heard of him, one of the greatest golfers of all time. And you've also got fabulous photographs. This is one of my favourite photographs, personally one of my favourite photographs here, because it's Seve exploding from a bunker, and look at the height of the ball he gets. That was one of the things that made him so unique, was the height he got on his bunker shots, and he was just a master of the short game. You've got Peter Alliss here, Bernard Gallagher. He was one of the Ryder Cup captains in 1991, 1993, and 1995. And then you've got the first proper chapter in the book, The Young Star. So this is basically just saying where he was born, about his childhood, and his sort of first few years as a professional. So you got Pedrena in 1975. That was the year before he exploded onto the scene, practicing it as star in the making, it says here. And then you got World Cups, and his first win here, the Dutch Open. And only 4 weeks before that, Seve had finished tied second at the Open at Royal Birkdale to Jack Nicklaus. And the world just fell in love with him, basically, because he had that lovely flowing swing, and he had never really been heard of before that Open. because he had a few top tens, but he wasn't really that well known. But then 4 weeks after the Open, finishing second, Seve claimed his first win at the Dutch Open in 1976. And he won by 8 shots from, I think it was Sandy Lyle or Nick Faldo. And then you got these really interesting moments in time. And that's basically just telling you about some of the best moments in his career. So then we have a few more smaller wins. The match play of 1977 at Wentworth, the Langham Trophy, and then the majors, the Open, the Masters, the US Open, the PGA, the 4 majors. And Seve won the British Open 3 times and the US Masters 2 times. And so there's 2 or 3 pages of the summing up his major championship career, and then you get onto the pages. The pages with the photographs of him at the majors. So here, the Open Championship from 1976. It says youthful power and panic. Seve was just 19 when he announced himself to the golfing world at Royal Birkdale in the 1976 Open. And he was very famous. The first shot that most people saw him play was a chip and run between 2 bunkers to 3 feet and a tap-in birdie for Seve there on the 18th hole. So then after that, you get to his first major win, the 1979 British Open. He drove his tee shot in the 16th hole into a car park, and he made birdie from there. Then you have the Masters. He was the first European to win the US Masters. He won by 4 strokes from Australian Jack Newton, and then he went without a major in 1981 and 1982, but then he bounced back in 1983 with another Masters win, and at the 18th he chipped in for a par, and that basically guaranteed him a place in the all-time greats. And then the best moment of his career, the 1984 Open Championship at St Andrews. In the final round, I think he was 2 or 3 shots behind Ian Baker Finch and Tom Watson. Baker Finch went in the water at the first hole, so that stopped him from making a real charge ahead. But then it was the American Tom Watson. He was the defending champion. He won in 82 and 83. Tom Watson really was the man to beat. And at the 17th, there's a famous hole, the road hole, at the 17th August at St Andrews. And there's a road behind it, and Tom Watson, he hit a 2-iron onto the road, and that basically stopped him. That basically sort of stalled his charge at winning a 3rd Open title and equaling Harry Barton's record of 6 wins. But Seve, he parred 17, and then at 18, he hit a beautiful 3-wood down the centre of the fairway, and then a lovely sand wedge into the green. And here is the famous sequence of photographs taken by David Cannon, and it is this one that was chosen for his company logo. Actually, the photograph on the front of the book, and those, I think those are the greatest sporting photographs ever taken. So then he wins a 2nd Claret Jug, so he's now a 4-time major champion and a 2-time Masters winner, 2-time Open winner. Masters in 1985, the main person to beat was Bernard Laing, his fellow European rival. They played together in the Ryder Cup. They were successful in the Ryder Cup, and Seve eventually finished 2nd in 85. Bernard Laing holding the putt on 17 and Seve missing his. Then in 86, that really was when he changed. He was leading the Masters. He made a fabulous eagle at the par 5 13th hole, a fantastic 6-iron to 8 feet. Then he rolled in the putt for an eagle. That put him 3 ahead of Tom Kite, but then Tom Kite birdied, which meant that he was only 2 ahead. And he stood in the 15th fairway with a 2-shot lead. And then a golden bear was charging. Jack Nicklaus, the greatest player of all time, was charging. And Seve, on the par 5 15th, he wasn't sure whether to lay up or go for it, and he decided to go for a 4-iron instead of going with a 5-iron. Now, a 5-iron, he could have hit it extremely hard, carried the water and gone on the green and rolled in the putt for an eagle or a birdie. But he decided to go for a 4-iron, and he just didn't quite feel committed. And eventually, he hit it fat and it went in the water, and that's where he lost his a chance for another Masters win. And in '87 he lost in a playoff to Greg Norman and Larry Myers, and eventually Larry Myers chipped in at the second playoff hole to deny Greg Norman of a first green jacket. But then the Open Championship 1988, he was back at Royal Lytham, and he shot a final round at 65 to beat Nick Price by 2, with a fabulous chip that could and so nearly went in at the 18th hole, but it didn't quite go in. But he still won his third Open title and a fifth major. He was in contention for a few more majors. He went in the trees at the 10th hole at the Masters again. He never really played that hole well, and that sort of stopped him from winning another Masters. And then he went in the water at the 16th. So that was really when he stopped really contending for the majors. But then there's another chapter in this book called The Boy from Pedrena, and this is just all about his humble beginnings, how he learned to play the game. And then there's some fabulous family photographs of him with his family, his children, his wife, playing with his children. There's one of them in the swimming pool together. So some of these photographs, there was one. There's these football ones of him playing football and practicing at home that have never been seen before. So these were only released last year from the Ballesteros family. And then there's another moment in time, and this is one of my favourite moments in the book, because it's basically David Cannon was in Pedrena photographing Seve playing some golf, and they decided to go down to the beach where Seve learnt to play golf. He learnt to play golf on the beach with one club, and there's these lovely photographs of Seve on the beach, and that's just one of the best moments in the book for me. And then there's him at home, some more practicing in the gym, and then Global Icon. This is where he really started to explode onto tour. Holland, Belgium, France, the United States, England, Switzerland, Germany, Japan, New Zealand, the Philippines, Kenya, Sweden. What a random collection of countries. You are probably thinking, but that particular dozen are the 12 different nations in which Seve Ballesteros won golf tournaments before he won the Open in 1979. So he'd already exploded onto the world stage. He was very popular with the fans. Seve was regarded as a superstar throughout Asia. And then in 2007, when he retired, he didn't quite retire. He played in the Champions Tour. But unfortunately, his game had gone off. His back was hurting him. He had tremendous back troubles. And he came last in the Champions Tour tournament. And that was his only Champions Tour appearance. And so there's a bit more about the Global Icon, him in Japan, him with friends, and then the European Tour. Seve was and still is the most successful European Tour player. He won 50 times on the European Tour, or now known as the DP World Tour. And so his first European Tour win was the Dutch Open. Yes, he finished 8 shots ahead of England's Howard Clark, and then it just sort of flowed from there. He was a king of the match play. He was a 5-time match play winner. In 1980, he lost to Greg Norman, but in 1981, he beat Ben Crenshaw. 1982, he beat Sandy Lyle. 1983, he lost again to Greg Norman. 1984, he won against Bernard Langer, and then 1985, he won against Bernard Langer again. And then years later, in 1991, he beat Nick Price in a very tense final. And so here on the European Tour, here's a selection of photographs of trophies that he collected in his time whilst winning on the European Tour. So there's a lot about the European Tour. There's the Spanish Open, and then probably the greatest shot he ever hit in his life, the Cannon European Masters at Cran-sur-Sierre in 1993. He hit a shot over some trees and behind a 6-foot wall. And he decided to play it over this wall and over a swimming pool, over a hotel, and try and get it on the green. And his caddy was like, no, Seve, no. Chip it out, pick it on the green, hold a putt for par, you might still have a chance to win the tournament. No, says Seve. He said, Billy Foster, who was his caddy at the time, he said, Billy, go away, Give me the pitching wedge, go away, you know nothing. So Billy Foster goes away, and he says to some photographers, he says, there's no chance he's going to get this. So then he takes some practice swings with his pitching wedge, and he hits it over this wall, over a swimming pool, over a hotel, and lands it 5 yards short of the green. So then Billy Foster's like, well, good shot. And like, thank you. So then Seve goes up to the front of the green. He takes out like a 9-iron pitching wedge maybe, and he chips it in for a birdie. So then Billy Foster was praying to him, but unfortunately Barry Lane eventually won the tournament. But after that, he didn't really play so well. His last European Tour win came fittingly on home soil at the 1995 Spanish Open. And then there's a little bit more about the European Tour, and then you come to the Ryder Cup. Seve was the king of the Ryder Cup. Okay? His first appearance was in 1979. Europe didn't win. The Ryder Cup is a match between the 12 best American players against the 12 best European players. And they didn't win in 1979. And Seve was excluded from the team in 1981 because he was so popular. They thought he could control everything. But he came back in 1983 and probably hit the greatest ever Ryder Cup shot ever. A 3-wood out of the bunker at the 18th hole to get a half against Fuzzy Zoeller in his singles match. And he took a 3-wood, a wooden 3-wood out of a bunker. None of this modern 3-wood metal rubbish. A wooden 3-wood out of a bunker, and there was no footage of it, only a few photographs. But people described it as the best shot they'd ever seen. In 1985, they were at home soil in England at the Belfry. They won easily against the Americans. Their first win in the Ryder Cup for 27 years. And then in 1987, in America, they won again. At Muirfield Village, and this is where Seve teamed up with Jose Maria Olazabal, a young Spaniard this was his first Ryder Cup, and they were formidable. No one could really beat them. They lost 2 matches out of 15. Then at the Belfry in 1989, back in Europe, the matches were halved. But then in 1991, the war on the shore at Kiowa Island. It all came down to one putt. Bernard Langer missed a 6-foot putt to win the Ryder Cup for Europe, so the Americans won that. And then in 1993, they lost again on home soil. But then in 1995, they came back, and Seve didn't win his singles match, but that was his last Ryder Cup as a player. But then in 1997, on home soil in Spain, Seve captained the team to victory against Tom Kite. There's some pictures of Seve doing this in the book. And then that's all of it from the book, to be honest. There's a few little paragraphs by famous golfers. And then he retired, and unfortunately, Seve died quite young. He died of cancer, and then this is really why this book was produced. And so I think on a scale of 1 to 10, this book is probably at least 9 or 10. To be honest, I mean it's just so good. For any Seve fan or golf fan, this is the book. So my rating of this book, 10 out of 10. So if you're a Seve Ballesteros fan, get this book. I can promise you, you will learn quite a bit from it, especially about his family life. You will definitely learn a lot from this book. So that's the end of the video today. If you really enjoyed it, remember to click the like and subscribe buttons. And yes, definitely, if you're a Seve Ballesteros fan, get this book. You can get it on the Open app. You can get it from Amazon. And so yeah, definitely get this book. And remember to like and subscribe. And see you soon.